quality discussions. And I would like to share 3 of these protocols or 3 of these processes that were very useful to me or have already been useful to me. The first one is this rank order partner discussion, which is something that, as any other protocol, we did ourselves. We perform ourselves during the workshop. So in this case, it's a very simple, very easy, very useful to just an introduction between students. It's almost like an icebreaker of sorts, where you're given a list of elements and you are asked to rank them and then share your ranking with someone else. I have introduced this in my own class. So this is one of the classes I teach in the fall. I teach in the first architectural design studio for the graduate program for the Master of Architecture. And so these are students with no architectural background that are decided to change careers and become architects. So this is the first design studio. And the class is divided into 3 parts. Well, 4 parts, but the first 3 parts are 3 questions. I ask them in the form of a question. What is a platform? What is a wall? What is a roof? And so in this particular case, I always start these exercises, which each of them lasts for like 3 weeks, where they have to design first a platform, then a wall system or an enclosure, and then a roof. So in this last of these 3 exercises, what is a roof? I share with them a deck of slides like this, and I ask them to look at them. We discuss them together. We reflect on them, on the different spatial characteristics, and then I ask this question, right? To start addressing the question, what is a roof? Please reflect on the roof structures included in that mural board by paying specific attention to the following characteristics. And then I ask them to rank the references in terms of how contained or how not contained spaces. To me, what was interesting about this is that it's a very simple, very efficient way for the students to commit to a position, but understand at the same time to understand the contingency of the commitment and the fact that that commitment, which is in some ways circumstantial and contingent to what they know at that particular time, is going to change through time. And so what I do and what I've done this first time that I've tested this is that I ask them to rank these images at the very beginning of the exercise, and then I ask them to rank them later in the exercise. So later in the exercise, I show them again the same images, and I ask them to do the same exercise again. But by then, they have already been thinking about the roof. They have already been designing their own roof, and so their understanding of what a roof is now different. And so their ranking as a consequence is different. So this is a very, very simple 5-minute exercise that allows the student to understand the learning process that they're going through, the changes that they're going through, and most importantly, the changeability of their knowledge. How changing opinions not a bad thing, is just a consequence of the contingency of their own situations. And therefore, that should help them understand that their own point of view is their own point of view, and they have to develop certain empathy and ability to understand others. And I thought that this was without having to say anything, this was a very, very simple, high economy of means ways of doing that. So I've been using these relatively often in my classes, and I will continue to do so, again, because of its high economy of means. Another one that I thought was very, very useful was the jigsaw discussion process, where it's maybe the example that we're given was all the students had to read all the text, read in between quotation marks, so they had to become familiar with all the text, but then they were randomly assigned to become an expert on one of the texts. And so then the students are divided in groups. First, they're the expert groups. So then all of the students that have been assigned to become an expert on one particular text meet and discuss that particular text that they have read more in detail. And then they are meet a second time with other experts on the other papers, on other texts, so that they can compile the information together. This is something very useful, for example, for a book or for a collection of texts that will all around the same topic, but each text offering a different point of view. In particular, for my own discipline, for architecture, I saw that this was like very useful for breaking down buildings into different aspects. Foundations, entry, windows, roof, internal circulation, and so being able to understand that you might, again, this is randomly assigned, you might become contingently and circumstantially an expert on something, but then that information has to be fitted in with other people that have also circumstantially become expert in their own aspect of the exercise or in their own area of knowledge. And again, this helps in both, I think, commit or anchor the students in a particular position, in a particular type of knowledge, in a particular type point of view, but at the same time, allow them to be able to understand the contingency, the precarity of their own point of view, and how they need to develop an ability of understanding and listening to others. So I thought, again, this was like a very useful way of achieving that twofold aspect of a discussion. Finally, I want to discuss this critical friends critique process, because another thing that I thought was another realization that I had during the discussion project that was very, very useful to me was that some of these protocols are teaching techniques that each of us know in different ways or with different levels of detail. And some of them are really anchored, really are part of our own disciplines. For example, in this case, the critical friends critique process is an author prepares a teaching plan and then presents it to a group of people. That group of people, each person reads the author's plan. The author provides highlights and asks for feedback. And so the group asks clarifying questions, and then the group members reflect silently. They offer suggestions while the author is listening silently, and then the author shares the takeaways. So this is how it was presented to me, but this is something that we do all the time in my discipline, in my profession. We are constantly doing pinups and reviews with the students and in our own practical profession, in our own practice. So these are, for example, some images that come from the Instagram account of my own school, Sawh. And so here you have something that happens constantly. Here's a student presenting a booklet of the work that he has done with images and models. Here's a team of students. Sometimes it's a little bit more formal in a bigger setting. Here is a panel of the faculty and guests that are looking at the students' work. And here we have other images of the same situation. Sometimes it's more informal. This is what we call a pinup. And sometimes it's more formal. This is what we call a review. So students throughout a semester has 15 weeks. We have a pinup or a review every 1 or 2 weeks. Everywhere in the world, everywhere there is an architecture school, we have this type of public critique. And so this is something like very, very essential to the way that we educate architects. Now, the interesting thing to me, and this is what we don't do, was group members reflect silently, and then the author listens silently. And this was a little addition that actually can make a very big difference, because the students don't take the feedback so personally. The students might actually feel more comfortable with the feedback. It doesn't produce the type of conversation or discussion that sometimes happens in the reviews that we have, but it has the added benefit of this becoming maybe less personal in some ways, more objective in some ways, less aggressive, or might appear less aggressive, less intimidating for the students. So to me, this aspect of reflecting silently without jumping immediately to ask questions to the students and then the students to sit back and listen silently was like a very interesting addition to a teaching technique that I thought I knew very well, because I've been educated in that way and I educate in that way. So the discussion project overall was very interesting in sharing, in learning teaching techniques, protocols, processes, on how to help students construct knowledge through discussion, but also particularly to me, and this is one example, was also helpful in redefining techniques that we periodically use constantly, realizing that despite the fact that we thought or that we think we know them, there might be something extra that could help us improve them. Anyway, thank you very much. And now I'll leave it to Leon.